Hello everyone, welcome to today's story. The cafe had been calm since Alex and his mother's last visit. The chairs were always in their proper places, and the clock above the counter seemed to hum in rhythm with Lytuna's quiet routine. But that evening, the bell over the door rang. A soft chime that didn't sound like welcome, but warning. She looked up. The woman who entered wasn't a stranger. Rain clung to her hair, her eyes scanning the room like someone measuring distance from an old wound. Lytuna's hands stayed steady on the counter. "My," she said softly, as if the name itself could disturb the peace. Mai smiled, polite, restrained, dangerous. The cafe filled again with silence thick enough to hear the hum of the espresso machine. Outside, the sky was gray and watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. The truth is just beginning to unfold. Mai didn't need to raise her voice. Her presence alone rearranged the air. "This is where you've been," she said, each word careful as porcelain. Lytuna wiped her palms against her apron. "I'm working. What would you like to drink?" "Whatever you think I should," Mai replied, stepping closer. The door sighed shut behind her. The jazz track drifted on, but the cafe grew colder. A couple by the window looked up, sensing something they couldn't name. Steam rose like hesitation between them. Lytuna turned to the machine, hiding her trembling in ritual. Grind, tamp, press, pour, each motion a breath. In the mirror's reflection, Mai stood still, her eyes a quiet storm. "Does Alex know you're here every afternoon?" "Yes," Lytuna said, her voice barely above a whisper. "And Henry? Does he call you Mom here too?" The question pierced softly, but it landed deep. Lytuna gripped the counter, the edge biting her skin. "He's with Grandma Tang today. He's happy." Mai nodded, but her tone slipped into something colder. "People like you always find a way to stay." Before Lytuna could answer, the bell rang again. The gust that followed carried drizzle and city scent. And Alex. His jacket was damp, his eyes steady. He glanced between them, pausing just long enough for the silence to speak first. "I'm nearby," he said simply. Mai tilted her head. "So this is what loyalty looks like?" "No," Alex replied. "This is respect." He placed a small paper bag on the counter, sesame bread, still warm. Lytuna could smell the faint sweetness breaking through tension. Mai's expression flickered, curiosity, loss, recognition, then settled into poise. "Do you think this will last?" "I think peace does," he said. The three stood suspended in still air until Mai finally lifted her cup. "Your coffee's good," she said to Lytuna. "Enjoy your peace," to Alex. She left with the faintest sound, the doorbell. One soft ring. Afterward, Alex exhaled, shoulders easing. Lytuna hadn't noticed her own breathing had stopped. "Are you okay?" he asked. She nodded. "I am now." Outside, the city wore its rain like a veil, and somewhere, between the hum of streetlights and the lingering echo of footsteps, a decision quietly began to form. One that would soon change everything. That night, the rain followed them home. It wasn't heavy, just a whispering drizzle that blurred reflections into light. Lytuna walked beside Alex, clutching the warm paper bag to her chest. "I didn't expect her," Alex said quietly. "Neither did I," she answered. "But she didn't come for coffee?" He nodded. The sound of their steps filled the pause between them. "Did she say anything I should know?" Tuna hesitated. She asked if Henry still calls me Mom. Alex slowed his pace. And what did you say? I said yes, because it's true. The wind lifted her hair slightly. The street smelled of wet asphalt and bread. For a moment, she thought of how easily the past slipped its way into the present, uninvited, but never fully gone. When they reached her dorm, she turned the key halfway and stopped. Thank you, she said. For what? For showing up. For standing with me. He smiled, small but certain. You shouldn't have handled that alone. I didn't, she replied. You were there. Inside, the small room glowed with lamplight. Steam rose from the cup she poured him, the scent of roasted beans softening the edges of the evening. But before peace could settle, her phone buzzed. An unfamiliar number. 3 words. Be careful. No name, no punctuation. Just wait. Then another message. He always showed up in time. Her pulse spiked. Alex caught the change in her face. What happened? She handed him the phone. He read in silence, then locked the screen and placed it face down. She wants to be in the room when she's not in it, he said. But she's not. Not anymore. Tuna took a breath, steadying her hands. I know. Still, it's strange how fear lingers, even when you don't believe it. He looked at her with calm certainty. Fear doesn't vanish. It waits for you to choose something stronger. For the first time that night, she smiled. And what's stronger? He reached for her hand. Conviction. The world outside hummed faintly, and in that quiet, Alex found his truth. He turned to her fully, his tone both trembling and firm. Tuna, he said, I'm tired of hiding what's already ours. People will talk. They always do. But I'm done explaining myself to those who never stayed long enough to understand. So if peace has a price, I'll pay it. She blinked, uncertain if she understood. He inhaled. I'm asking you to marry me. The words weren't loud, they didn't echo, but they reached her like warmth spreading through cold fingers. No ring, no kneeling, only the kind of honesty that comes when fear dissolves into choice. Her throat tightened. You mean it? I wouldn't say it if I didn't, he answered. Outside, a bus passed, headlights sliding over their faces, 2 silhouettes finally stepping out of shadow. Tuna let out a trembling laugh, tears at the edge of her smile. Then I suppose this is how peace begins, not with silence, but with a promise. And at that moment, everything changed. Morning arrived without warning, spilling its pale light through the curtains. Tuna woke first, still unsure whether the night before had truly happened. The city outside murmured in a quiet rhythm, as if the world itself was catching its breath. Alex was already by the window, hair slightly tousled, eyes tracing the drizzle that hadn't stopped since dawn. It's still raining, he said. Good, she replied. It hides us from the noise. He turned, smiling. We won't need to hide much longer. They shared a slow breakfast, sesame bread reheated, 2 cups of black coffee. Every sip felt like reclaiming something ordinary. Yet under that calm, the memory of those messages remained, like the faint outline of smoke after a candle's gone out. Later that day, while cleaning the counter at the cafe, Tuna's phone vibrated again. Her breath halted, the same number, unreadable, but this time she didn't open it. She placed the phone face down and whispered to herself, "Peace is a choice." When she looked up, Alex was at the door, umbrella in hand, watching her with quiet pride. He didn't have to ask. He already knew. That evening, they sat side by side in her apartment. A notebook lay between them, their one-page strategy. Alex had drawn 4 small boxes. Block the door. No more ghosts walking in. When the bell rings, talk to each other first. Don't build a house in a storm. Guard peace as if it were alive. He added a 5th line, half smiling. 5th, when the world gets loud, make coffee. Tuna laughed softly. You and your rules. Peace needs structure, he said. They brewed a fresh pot, the smell weaving through the small room. Steam coiled upward like a thread tying them back to earth. She poured his cup first. Do you regret it? She asked. Saying it? The proposal? When people are still talking? He looked at her, eyes warm and unwavering. I regret waiting this long. The answer landed gently, like sunlight after rain. She didn't cry this time. Instead, she reached across the table, her fingers brushing his. Outside, the rain thinned into mist. The sound of tires on wet asphalt faded into the hum of evening. A knock broke the quiet. The postman. Tuna opened the door and signed for a small envelope with no return address. Inside was a single card. Sometimes silence is heavier than truth. She set it aside, unbothered. Alex watched her reaction and nodded approvingly. Let her talk in her own silence, he said. Tuna exhaled, then took a pen and drew a small daisy on the corner of the card. Every story needs a mark to show it's finished, she whispered. He smiled. Then make ours bloom. As night folded over the city, the two of them walked out again. The streets shimmered, rainwater reflecting neon and moonlight. They passed the cafe, lights off, chairs stacked, their reflections merging briefly in the window before parting again. Tuna glanced at him. Do you think we'll make it? Alex tightened his grip around her hand. We already are. The walk home was slow, filled with small breaths and larger meanings. No audience, no applause. Just the quiet rhythm of 2 hearts that had chosen stillness over spectacle. When they reached her door, Alex kissed her forehead, a gesture so tender it erased the need for words. Get some rest, he murmured. You too, she answered, and meant it. That night, as she lay down, the faint smell of coffee lingered in her hair. Somewhere outside, a bus sighed, and the city, for once, seemed to approve. The next morning, the sky was pale and forgiving. The city had washed itself clean overnight. Tuna walked to the cafe as usual, her apron folded neatly in her bag, her steps quiet but certain. The bell above the door greeted her with a familiar chime, no longer a warning, but a beginning. She set the tables, wiped the counter, turned on the espresso machine. The same jazz melody played, but now it sounded softer, as if even the music understood something had changed. When Alex arrived, he didn't say much. He placed a bouquet of daisies beside the grinder, small, white, imperfect flowers that somehow belonged. For the counter, he said. They'll wilt, she replied. They'll last just long enough, he answered. They shared a look that carried the weight of every silence they had endured. Outside, people passed by, unaware of the quiet vow being kept within these walls. At noon, Mai walked past the window. She didn't come in, just a brief glance, unreadable, before she disappeared into the crowd. Lytuna's heart didn't flinch this time. She turned back to the coffee machine, adjusting the filter, steady and calm. Later that evening, as they closed the shop, Alex lingered by the door. "They'll talk," he said softly. "They always do," she smiled, "but their voices fade faster than love." He took her hand, not as a claim, but as a reminder. "Then we'll let them talk while we keep living." The lights dimmed. The hum of the machine ceased. She flipped the sign to "closed." Their reflections appeared on the glass once more, two figures overlapping as the rain outside began again, gentle and familiar. In that mirrored world, peace didn't look like stillness. It looked like choice. It sounded like breath. It felt like forgiveness. Tuna turned off the lights, the last sound being the faint click of the switch, a punctuation mark at the end of a long sentence. As they stepped out into the night, Alex opened the umbrella over both of them. The air smelled of earth and rain, of promises kept quietly. Maybe love doesn't end. It just changes shape, from longing to calm, from silence to understanding, from a trembling heart to steady hands around a cup of coffee. The bell inside the cafe gave one last soft ring, echoing into the evening. Not as a warning this time, but as a gentle hymn for all things that choose to stay.
Giữa ánh sáng chiều mai, Phong bị tiền đến ký túc xá, muốn Tử Na và bỏ rơi Alex, nhưng Tử Na từ chối. Cô chỉ mong giữ lại những điều giản dị, nụ cười Henry, giấc ngủ yên của Alex. Một buổi sáng sáng hôm sau, Mai xuất hiện một lần nữa giữa quán cà phê đối mặt cùng Tử Na và Alex, nhưng lời xin lỗi, những bức ảnh, những im lặng, tất cả hóa thành khoảnh khắc của sự thật. Alex bức ảnh chọn ở lại, Mai rời đi trong ánh sáng cuối cùng. Trên chiếc xe buýt, Tử Na và Alex nắm tay hướng về Henry. Tình yêu không thắng cũng không thua, nó chỉ trở hình dạng, trở nên dịu dàng và sâu sắc hơn.